Hey, everybody. This is Heidi St. John. Welcome to the podcast today. I am thrilled to have my friend Sherri Seligson here at the Firmly Planted Studios with me. And we're going to talk about a wide variety of topics today. But one of the main things we're going to camp on is relationships. You guys know how passionate I am about the family unit and maintaining those relationships. I've raised 7 kids, and sometimes it's a little hairy. It is the best of times and it is the worst of times. And I think for many parents out there, trying to navigate sibling relationships and help your kids become friends is very challenging. And it becomes even more challenging through the middle school years and up into high school. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. You guys are going to love Sherri as much as I do. This is the Heidi St. John podcast. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Well, welcome to the show, you guys. I want to thank my sponsor today. Not Consumed is sponsoring the show. Check them out. notconsumed.com/Heidi. These guys are writing Bible studies that are geared to help your family become closer to the Lord and closer with each other. If you use the coupon code Heidi when you check out, you can get 15% off your entire purchase. I love these guys. Check them out. notconsumed.com/Heidi. Well, Sherri Seligson and I met years ago. She is a homeschool mom. She's got her master's degree in education. She's a marine biologist. She's an author. But more than that, she is a wonderful mother and a wonderful wife to her husband, Dave. And I'm thrilled to have her here to talk about this stuff today. Sherri,
hi,
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
For goodness sake, you flew out here from Florida, girl.
I know. To the frigid north for us.
To the frigid north.
Worthwhile.
The frigid north, it was like, 40 degrees. And we're all like, it's the frigid north.
That's cold.
For the Flatlanders. But we've had some opportunities to see you guys over the years in Florida. And you've been out to the Oregon coast with us. And it's kind of fun just to see where the Lord's taking you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing right now. Because oh my goodness, you've done a lot of different things.
Well, it's interesting to see how God moves us through the seasons of life. So I worked as a marine biologist at Walt Disney World's Living Seas. Was in charge of the predators. So I worked with sharks and did shark research.
That sort of describes Walt Disney World, but whatever.
Well, right. It was great back then. And it was a wonderful experience. And I got pregnant with our first child. And God was calling me to be home with our children. And so I left that, was promoted to mom. I consider it promotion. And we started having children and expanding our family. God called us to homeschool. We homeschooled our kids.
Did you always plan on homeschooling? Or was that kind of a...
It was, I think our son was about 2 or 3, our oldest, when we were exposed to a couple of homeschool families. Mm-hmm. We're just touched by their children. Yeah. The idea was just astonishing. And I thought, couldn't really ruin preschool.
How hard could it be?
Those are famous last words. How hard could it be? That could be like the theme of my life. How hard could it be? Right. But yes, that started us on that journey of homeschooling. We homeschooled our 4 children, K through 12. They're all graduated now. But through that process in the homeschool community, if you get tagged as a person who likes science, which I love, science and creation, people want you to teach their children. So I started writing for teaching co-op classes and then began writing a curriculum for Apology Educational Ministries. I thought, how hard could it be? I could write a curriculum. So again.
And you did. You guys you've done some amazing work for Apology. I was thinking it would be fun, and I'll work at this to get some pictures. You have some great pictures when you were working as a marine biologist over at Walt Disney World. Some really fun pictures. Yes. So send me some and I'll see if we can add them to B-roll so people can see you in action. So a lot of fun.
We get to go now that our kids are gone. My husband is my videographer. I do instructional videos that accompany all the
I see. You're traveling with your cameraman.
That's
I see what's going on.
My cameraman. And so we go all over the world when we're to see science where it's happening. So
that's awesome.
It's been really fun.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, I'm curious because you've been in the homeschool community now for a long time, like I have. I met you, I think, because I was speaking for FPEA, and we've done some stuff together over the years. But would you say the homeschool community has changed? Like in the last, we've been at this now, for 25 years plus, right? Yes. But I feel like the homeschool movement is shifting quite a bit. What would you say is the biggest difference you've seen from when you started to now?
Knowledge of homeschooling actually being a potentially viable method of education. Yeah. That it used to be back in the day when we were homeschooling our little ones.
Is it fringy?
Is that legal?
Yeah.
Is it, and now it's, I know someone who does that, particularly since we've had the shutdown with COVID, the
silver lining of that was all these parents really seeing what was happening in the public schools and being given the opportunity to try something different. And I'll tell you what, we're retaining a lot of those people.
We are, because they're seeing their children thrive. Mm-hmm. You're able to tailor. I mean, one-on-one education is the best method of learning.
Yep.
We know that. And so for a teacher, I feel for teachers in, public school system, even in private schools where you've got 25 plus kids with 25 different ways of learning. And so to have to meet those needs of each child, you cannot. You can't even get to know how a child learns in a 6 months. Mm-hmm. So the teacher can't even tailor it at that point. It's very difficult.
Well, and throughout history, tutorials were like, this is the education of princes. Absolutely. Right? This is how royalty was educated. It was this one-on-one tutorials. Families would hire tutors that would come in, and this was considered a very elite form of education. Right. And it works. And here you've got the homeschool movement, with little homeschool mom, Heidi St. John. I didn't get my teaching certificate. And my kids are doing great.
Yes.
And when you find that out, when you realize, oh, hey,
I know,
I can do it. It changes you.
It does. And I didn't get my educational master's until after my kids were grown.
Oh, wow.
I just was doing that because I was writing curriculum. I wanted to know more about what was going on in the school systems and what teachers were being exposed to. And so it was a great eye-opening situation. But yeah, I didn't. Was there some magic formula? I didn't know, but I loved my kids. I knew how they learned. I knew what they liked. And as I got to know them and they got to know themselves, we were able to tailor how they learned and what curriculum we used so that they could thrive.
Yeah.
And as best as they're able to do, reach their fullest potential.
And the bonus, they didn't have to swim through a cesspool to get an education, right? Because they were educated in your home with the values that you and your husband wanted to instill in them. And you had the opportunity to be together as a family. And one of the biggest benefits to homeschooling, I think, is that you have you create a little ecosystem, right? Within, to use a scientific term. I hope you guys just picked up what I put down. I'm trying to do that only because Sherri's here. Okay. I don't normally say ecosystem, but my point is you really do create that with your family. And you have an opportunity to foster relationships. And I know you're passionate about this. How important is it that, because we can, honestly, you can homeschool your kids, even if you're not homeschooling them. You can raise your kids and not focus on that relational aspect. And you're just, home is just a place where you drop your backpack and, and we don't spend the effort and time to really help nurture those relationships. It matters, doesn't it?
It's significant. And we, our kids are more exposed to information than they ever have been, but it's pulling us away from that relational thing that really is a part of a family and part of a community. If you have your children at home, people will talk about, well, I want to schedule quality time.
Right.
And quality time is so important. Yes, and do that. Go on dates with your kids. That's great. But I remember doing that with my child once, one of my kids, and we went out and got some ice cream. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Let's do let's have a good conversation. Go. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be talking about but what happens is when you have quantity time, you get that quality time because as you're discussing something that happened in history or something on the news, your children are able to say, well, Mom, what about this? Or Dad, what about that? And you've got the time at that moment to grasp it then and say.
So you're saying quantity actually matters. People will say, well, it's quality, it's not quantity. But one of the things that the public schools, and actually, even good private schools, and this is not me bashing the private school, so nobody send me an email. No. But I think that the thing that these systems of education, and that's what they are, they're products for educators, and parents are educators. So we need to start looking at the schools as offering a product. And me as a parent, when I'm looking at the education of my children, I'm going to choose one of those products. I'm going to choose the public school, I'm going to choose a private school, or I'm going to choose to be the person who's completely in charge of that by getting tutors and having them at home or whatever. But at the end of the day, the downside to these products of education that I can see, particularly as it relates to public and private schooling, is that they rob the parents of time. Absolutely. It's the quantity that we miss. And so our kids are gone from us. Right. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year. And boy, I'll tell you, you get the leftovers. They come home from school at night. I know this because our daughter went to school for the first 3 years of school. I hardly ever saw her. Yeah. And we miss that. The quantity actually matters.
Helps. And honestly, even extracurricular and after school is over and on the weekends, we feel pressure in our country, in our culture, to get our kids doing all the things.
Right.
Because what's the end goal? We don't know, but we want them to get
that
scholarship or whatever it is. And they won't succeed if they don't take this extracurricular class or do this soccer or whatever. And so even if your kids are in a private or public school system, you can grasp that time for family dinner. They don't have to be in all the sports and all the
Hold on. Whoa. Wait, they don't have to be in all the sports?
I give you permission if you're listening right now. You do not have to be. We had our two oldest boys in soccer when they were like 4 and 5, thinking this is what we need to do and get them exposed to kids and athletics and so we found out, okay, well, you take this one over here for practice and you go here and I'll take the baby and we'll go here. And Saturday's games were over here. And we were like, this is nuts.
It's nuts.
And so we actually found, go get the athletics, but do it as a family.
Yeah.
We actually went to, our YMCA was doing family taekwondo for twice a week. And so I'm a 5th degree white belt.
Get out of town.
I know.
Look at you.
I know, right? I had 8-year-olds who had outranked me saying, give me 50. But it was great to be able to do that with our family and to engage the experiences that you have together. Those shared experiences are what build relationships. You can parse your kids out to multiple grades and multiple ages, and they have those experiences, but they don't have it shared with you or with their siblings. And those are the things that connect and bond us.
Well, we don't foster relationships in the culture anymore. And it's had I'm sure you're seeing this, the impact that this lack of relational IQ that we have is having on society.
Right. It started with us, having our little houses where we drive into the garage, shut the garage door and don't ever see our neighbors. And so we don't engage in that community there. And now I read a recent statistic that the better performing or paying jobs that people are getting is when people change jobs every 2 to 3 years.
Whoa!
Otherwise, they're not able
stuck.
to get that slight increase, and so their goal is to get what are we aiming for? Billionaires? I don't know. But they're doing this because they want to keep moving up the corporate ladder in their jobs, and we're losing connection. You don't have, Joe who's worked in this area in your company for years, and all of a sudden his wife gets cancer and the company comes together.
Around.
You don't get that. You don't get the loyalty.
The community aspect of this is so crucial. And honestly, it's one of the things I love about Firmly Planted. I mean, you guys have been here and been able to kind of walk around and see the Homeschool Resource Center and what we're doing here. We've got about 40 people on staff here. Some of them are volunteers. Some of them work full-time. Some of them are part-time. But I'll tell you what, it's a community. When one person here suffers, people come around them, and I see it over and over again.
Yes.
And we've kind of lost that. It's like we think it doesn't matter.
We are wired for community. God created us for connection and community. The family is the family unit, but then the greater community. I tell people, yes, it does not take a village to teach a child, but it takes a village to maybe raise a homeschool mom.
Right.
I need the village.
Well, that's why, honestly, that's exactly why we started the Homeschool Resource Center. I told my husband, this is what I wanted 25 years ago. I want to be around my people. So when you come here, there's a coffee shop and a bookstore, and it is, for lack of a better word, it's an ecosystem.
It is.
It's its own little community here. And we want that because you need to be able to, you got to have somebody on speed dial when you're homeschooling your kids who you can call them up and say, I'm having a terrible day.
Right.
I don't know if I can do this anymore. Talk me down. And they can say, oh, girl, you look like you need a mocha with extra whip. I will be there. Give me 10 minutes and I will be there. I'm going to go through the drive-thru and I'll be on your front door. We need those relationships in our lives, and to pretend like we don't is almost, it's a little bit of emotional suicide.
It's kind of scary because it's not even in our churches anymore. We go to church, we get in our cars, and we go somewhere else.
It's the same thing as the neighborhood.
It's
with the garage door up and the garage door down.
And it's harder. It's more work to engage with others. It's more time consuming, but it is what helps us to thrive.
So how do we do it? So what are some ways we can foster that relationship? So there are people listening to this going, she right. But we don't know where to start anymore because we haven't done it for so long.
Right. And so you have to be intentional. I mean, every answer to this kind of stuff is intentionality, but invite after church another family that you don't know to go get lunch. Does not have to be, perfection.
Right.
But even just getting pizza, picking up something from the grocery store, fried chicken, and just getting together and having conversations. In the school environments, look for co-ops, look for others who are in your community at athletics. If your kids are in athletics, connect with, make that that personal connection. They do not have to have the exact same belief system completely. We have got to reach out, especially the Christian community.
So hold on.
Yeah.
So you're saying cut it out with the purist approach to relationships, and I actually think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree with me, I think that's one of the things that hurt the homeschool movement early on, was that we had this purity test. And if you didn't agree with me with my definition of dating versus courtship, or you're this or you're that, then all of a sudden we don't want to be around you. And I think we've hurt ourselves that way. We should be sharpening, we should be able to disagree about things.
Exactly.
And not be disagreeable and still walk in relationship.
In the Christian community, we need to be the first to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have got to reach the world.
Yeah.
And so how do we do that?
We can't even reach our neighbors.
Invite your neighbors over. I live in Florida. We've had several recent hurricanes and lose power and things like that. We're in Orlando, so it's
that community matters when that happens.
And when we lost power this most recent summer, our neighbors who live next door who do that go in the garage, shut the garage door. We never see them. We try, but they're always busy.
Mm-hmm.
They had a generator. We had a ton of meat that was defrosting, and we're like, hey, let's get together.
Let's barbecue.
We talked for 6 hours on our back porch about things we never would have otherwise.
I love that.
And we need that kind of opportunity, and it's uncomfortable, and it's sometimes awkward, and they may say things you're like, whoa, okay. But that's what we need to do to be able to have deeper conversations by getting to know them. And again, in our churches even, there's the easiest one right there. In our homeschool organizations or communities or co-ops, reaching out to others, it models it for our children. They get to see that this is what we do. They learn how to communicate with others. Homeschoolers as a whole tend to be able to relate and have relation with people many different ages.
Yeah.
And that's
because they're not siloed into a classroom. I mean,
Levels.
It's very, honestly, the schools, the more I think about this, the more I'm just like, when did we think this was a good idea? It's very Lord of the Flies-ish. Right?
Well, and never in your life are you around 30 people exactly
the same age.
That is not reality.
No, ever.
So
it doesn't matter if you're going to the bank or it doesn't matter. We don't,
you work.
Where are the 54-year-olds? That's where I need to be today.
Right?
No, you're not doing that.
No. And so it's so artificial. It is not socialization. And yes, we want our kids to be able to interact with people of all ages, of all cultures. I mean, it's really what the church should be doing.
Yeah.
And it should come naturally. And of course, then that helps our children have good relationships with each other.
Right.
Because they're learning
right.
Others are not like me.
Yeah.
And I still need to go out to them and reach out to them and not expect them to be exactly like me. How do I navigate that? And so we want to model that for our kids. And
so
be
good. I want to touch on sibling relationships for a minute because, you raised 4 kids. I raised 7 kids. It's messy. I mean, it's messy.
It is.
Right. We were talking the other day with two of our daughters about one of the very first houses we ever had, living up north in northern Washington, even colder than it is here. And they got into a fight one day, and one of the kids slammed the door open, put a hole in the wall, right, with the doorknob, right, and just. I mean, they are friends now, especially as they get older. I'm noticing this more and more. But I'll tell you what, Sherri, we had to work for it.
Yeah.
We had to work for it. And the sibling relationships, I read somebody say, this is how you make your kids become best friends. I don't actually think that's true. I don't think you can make your kids become best friends any more than you can make your kids become a Christian or make your kids want to follow Christ or any of those things. But I do think there are things that we can do that will help foster those relationships. But to me, the relationships we have at home are the most important relationships in our lives. Full stop, forever.
Your siblings, for the most part, will be the only individuals that you'll have the longest relationship with.
Yeah.
Even more than your parents.
Yeah.
And so,
because your parents gonna die.
That's right. It's the proving ground where they learn how to live with others. I mean, in our efforts to help them get along with one another, we're helping them learn how to do conflict resolution, how to live with a roommate potentially, how to live with their future spouse.
Right.
I've
told Mike so many times. We actually had all of our kids share rooms. Like even when we had more bedrooms than we needed, those kids were sharing rooms. And I'm like, you guys are going to get married and you're going to share a room with somebody. Yeah. And do you really think that your dad doesn't drive me nuts when he leaves his clothes on the floor? And I'm like, the hamper is right there.
That's right.
It is right there.
Even the way they put the dishes away.
Turn
the forks this way.
One of the very biggest, it was stupid. One of the very biggest discussions that Jay and I ever had after we were first married was, how do you put the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll? I grew up and it came down under, and I thought that was a civilized way to do it.
I'm sorry.
That's what he told me. So I have since changed my mind, because eventually I was like, this is not an argument. This is not an argument I'm going to have with you. So I finally went to the over the top now. And that's how all the toilet paper rolls are in our house. And now it drives me nuts when I go to other people's houses and it's the wrong way. I want the kids, you have to be able to work through stuff and decide, is this a hill I want to die on? Right. And the only way you figure that out is you work it out as you grow. And man, the sibling thing.
Yeah. And you have to appreciate the way that God made them. They may not choose one another as best friends. Like I wouldn't necessarily connect with this sibling because we have very different likes, but God placed us there.
Yeah. God did that.
Family for a reason. And these are people that will be there for you. We'll see things maybe you don't see. Yeah. And, you can laugh at their idiosyncrasies or whatever. And, just see, like, I'll leave this out and see how long is this mug until it drives my sibling crazy, and I laugh that it's going to, because I know it will. I mean, those are the and you have experiences together. Yeah. You have, when my kids get together now, that's what they do. They reminisce.
Yeah,
they look
ours
back
too.
At and it's usually the misadventures. It's usually the crazy things it's not like the traditions that I wanted them to imagine. It's the when the van broke down.
You worked so hard.
Crying.
Yeah. It's not the perfect scenario that as mothers, especially, we work so hard to create for our kids, right? It's not like, do you remember the day that I got all of the supplies out and I put them on the counter? Today we're going to do a craft day. And no, they don't remember that. No. You're right. They remember the van breaking down on the side of the road. They remember, like, it's the misadventures. We were talking at Christmas time about going up north, and we went to see Jay's parents. I think we had 6 kids at the time, and everybody got the flu. So the first night that we're there, I started it. And I'm telling you what, I'm thrown up all night long. Jay comes in the morning, he's trying to find me, and I'm just on the floor in the bathroom on a towel. Well, there's a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
And 15 minutes later, Jay was like, I'm not staying here. We're not going to stay here and expose my parents anymore to this. And also, we need to get home before I can't drive. So we piled all 6 of our sick, puking kids into and we were stopping every half an hour and just letting the kids puke on the side of the road. And I'll tell you what, that was a terrible Christmas, and they love to talk about it.
That's right. It's memorable. I can't tell you how many times I sat on the couch with my kids and we're reading these great books. The one thing they remember is the one time where I open up the book and I start reading, and then I wake up going, and the kids are gone. Like, I fell asleep reading to my kids,
and they're like,
yes, to sleep.
Let's go.
Yeah. And they love that story. And I'm like, yeah. So it is such an important thing for them to develop the relationships, understanding, forgiveness. Forgiveness is hard. Mm-hmm. And understanding that when your 3-year-old sibling throws a Lego and it hits you in the head, first of all, you need to forgive them. They don't understand necessarily cause and effect yet. And also, you can't
throw the Lego back and hit them in the head.
So forgiveness means you still have the hurt.
Yeah.
You have to forgive and still have those consequences still. Mm-hmm. We have to forgive. And so understanding that helps them understand the gospel.
Yeah.
Christ forgave us, and yet he still took those consequences.
Yeah.
There's bigger pictures. And so relationships is so important. But again, sibling relationships is where it's like the proving ground. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be intentional. Let them share rooms together.
Yeah.
Walk them through those processes.
Yeah.
Help them understand how each sibling is different.
Yeah, you can
unique.
clean up your room together. You guys can learn to do chores together. Talk to me about sibling conflict for just a minute, because I think there are moms who are so worn out. For goodness sake, I was talking to my daughter Savannah the other day, and she was like, "Mom, I think motherhood is I think maybe I'm going to die from it." I'm like, yeah, it does feel that way when your kids are constantly at each other and you're just refereeing from sunup to sundown. What are some things that parents can do to sort of help their kids work through these conflicts and not give up? Because I think so often we get tired, right? And you just sort of like, you know what, here, have the Sharpie, color whatever you want, and someday I'll just paint over it. But if we do that over and over and over again, we're really setting our kids on a trajectory that's not good for them.
Absolutely. And you're answering the question right there, that we can't just bide our time until they're old enough to isolate themselves from each other.
Right.
And understanding that friction is going to be there, but putting on the referee, metaphorically, that to me was the most important thing over anything we were doing homeschooling.
Yeah.
So I wasn't looking at it like referee, but relationship and character building, identifying, and then catching them when they're doing something positive.
Yes.
And calling it out and saying, thank you for being selfless and letting your younger sister play with your toy. That was huge. So we had little mini rules in the house. If a child got a new toy for a birthday, they got to play with it on their own, but we helped them understand, you get so much more blessing and benefit by sharing with your siblings. They want to see it too.
And that's something you'll take into the rest of your life. You're going to take that into the workplace, into your marriage, everywhere.
Of sharing with others. And so, yes, when there's bickering, helping them understand their differences. So this person understood it from this angle. You understood it from that angle. We are here to understand one another and to love each other in spite of our differences. How can we work this out together? Well, he did this and she did that. And
so exhausting.
Always and never.
Because you're like, you weren't there for it. And they come in and they're just, well, and after a while, you're like, oh, for goodness sake. I wonder too about when we talk about apologizing. So in our house, we kind of had this rule. It would be, when we realize that we have wronged someone, or when I have pointed out to you, maybe you haven't realized it, but mom points it out to you, you actually wronged your sister or you wronged your brother. Yeah. Then we required our kids to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me.
Will you forgive me?
That forgiveness piece. And then later on, we actually expanded that to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong that I... Really name the thing that you have done that was an injustice against your sibling. And I heard, I would have a parent say to me, you can't force a kid to apologize. I'm like, yes, I can. You may not mean it, but you're going to say those words and you're going to practice what it looks like to humble yourself enough. And then it's my job then to just pray for their heart, because only the Holy Spirit can soften the heart.
Absolutely. And then when we wrong our children or our spouse, being able to model that for them and say, I raised my voice or whatever it was I did. Yeah. It was wrong of me.
I opened my mouth and out came my mother. I don't know how that happened.
It was wrong of me. Will you forgive me? That is humbling. It requires humility. And for them, your children to see you or mom or dad doing that it just leaps and bounds more than what we can say.
I agree.
But going through that practice, like you said, it may not, will you forgive me? I'm sorry. I mean, they do it like that. I'm like, you need to understand this is a procedure. This is a process because it builds relationship. And they will have it in their mind how to do that so that when they're adults, again, with a roommate, with a spouse, this is for their good. Yeah. And so in the same way we encourage them to eat broccoli or whatever those vegetables are for their good. They may not love it right now. They may not understand it right now, but this is for their good. And it's not for our good. It's not for my good. It's for their good. And so I would just encourage parents who are in the thick of it. That's your prime directive, is building those relationships, getting the hearts of your children, building character. And, my husband was working during the daytime. I was home. It was like a very traditional family situation. I don't know if that's but I would come, he gave me permission to have cereal for dinner. And so I'd say, hey, guess what, honey?
It's one of the reasons why you're still married today. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, honestly, I knew I didn't have to do a million things, laundry on the floor, whatever it was. But we worked through, we had progress today by working through conflict. They're still freaking out about it. I'm still freaking out about it, but that was the prime for us.
Yeah, that was school today.
It was.
And really, I mean, I think this is very important, especially for homeschooling parents, because you've got your kids with you all day long. Character trumps the curriculum. Absolutely. Every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Yes. You recognize it's one of the blessings of having your kids at home. When I see a character flaw in my child, I can address it. Yes. I can say, hey, we're going to put down our history lesson right now. Or we're going to put down this grammar thing that we're doing, and we're going to talk about this right now. And maybe we need to take the rest of the day off to talk about it, because I've got a kid who is having an attitude problem, who needs to catch up on their chores or whatever it is. Education is more than what we see in a book. Absolutely. It's their character that we really want to develop. That's what takes them into the next season of their life.
Absolutely. And with character, then they will catch up on the academics if and when they need it.
Oh,
and
boy.
So that's, you're building a hard work ethic. You're building a responsibility. You're building all of these things in your children so that maybe they're a year or two behind in math. That seems to be, I don't know. But that's okay. One of my children was like that, because slow to develop, lots of different things going on.
Okay, that's really important for parents to hear, because the system lies to you, and we push our kids ahead and they're not ready. Maybe there was something, a concrete concept that they missed or still haven't understood or whatever, and they can do all the 9th grade stuff for reading. It's interesting, our youngest daughter, Sailor, the state of Washington requires that we test our kids every year. It's dumb, but we do it. I don't mind. I don't mind the test for myself. Like, it helps me kind of see what annoys me. Well, there's so many things. It doesn't matter. It's Washington. So I have my kids take these tests every year. Sailor, on her last test, she's testing out of high school, so college level for, spelling and English and math and all that kind of stuff. Or not math, all those things that I love, right? Because I love to teach them, and she's doing great. Guess what she doesn't love? She doesn't love math. The apple didn't fall that far from the tree. Then I have a hard time teaching it to her because I don't love it either. And so what we did was we went ahead and did another math assessment, and I found a math tutor that would pick her up right where she was. So while she's testing out of high school with English and spelling and language composition, she's still in 7th grade math. And and guess what? She's okay with it because she knows she's going to catch up.
Yes.
And so it's the opportunity that we have I'm not going to pull her down to a 9th grade level if she's ready to do 11th and 12th grade and early college level English.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull her up, and where I see she's behind, I'm going to help her catch up.
That's the beauty
That's
of
the beauty of homeschooling.
And teaching them how to learn. If she gets to a point where I need to have this math, I need to take a statistics class for this goal that that I have. Yeah. She'll take it and she'll do it and she'll be great.
Yes.
But other moms who are just I guess I want to say, if you've got a side hustle going on or a pressure of having this done or that done, those are not important in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. We have, as moms, we have such pressures put on us.
Could you be talking to like the part-time bloggers and the people that are throwing their families away for a little bit of platform and all that stuff? Yeah.
I mean, it is a race that will always die the moment you stop it. It is not something that's going to...
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Or you can pour everything you have into it to sustain it at the expense of what's so important.
Yeah.
So there will be a time maybe for that. But if you're struggling with the time of getting your kids educated or spending time with your children or doing whatever it is for the sake of this thing I've got going.
Yeah. You can always pick that thing up. Yeah, you can pick that thing up again, but you never get the time back with your children.
That's right.
Once it's gone, it's gone. And your kids are gone now. 6 of our 7 are effectively out of our home. And it really does go by fast. And I have talked to lots of moms that I know you have too, and fathers who grieve that they did not invest in their children when they had the opportunity.
It's a short season and it is so worth it. I would do it again. And I've done several things, but I didn't do them until we were in a situation.
Well, this is the lie of feminism too. The lie of feminism says, you can have it all right now. It's actually a lie. You can't. I do think that you can have it all, just not at the same time.
Exactly.
And we should be telling women, this is the time. I mean, look at you. You're young. And this is the time that your body is saying, let's have a baby, right? And the feminist movement has said, push that off as long as you can because career. Your career not going to love you when you're sick in bed. Your career's not going to bring you a lasagna, you know?
And you learn so much from every season of life that you're doing. You're learning. I gained so many skills as a homeschool mom.
Yes.
I didn't even know how to write.
Come on.
So God was using that to build in me skills that I didn't even know I needed for the next season that he had for me.
Yeah.
And so it is not wasted time. It is not a plan B.
No, it is not
God's plan A for your life.
That is a great title for this podcast. It's not a plan B, right? And I think people need to realize how important this is. I want to talk to you about something else that you're really passionate about, and that's middle schoolers.
Yeah.
All right, just a moment of silence, Sherri, for everyone with a middle schooler in their home right now. Boy, we love you guys.
It's a great season.
What's going on with our middle schooler? Because we know that there comes a point. I remember, Sherri, I mean, all of our kids have gone through this, and our youngest is in high school now. But I have this sweet, elementary school kid who every morning when I come down, she just adores me. She sees me. She's like, Mom, I love you. I love that sweater. Where did you get that sweater? I could go to the thrift store and pick out clothes and she would love them. It didn't matter because I brought them for her and she loved it. And then one day I came down the stairs and she's like, where'd you get that sweater? That is not the thing. Right. What are you doing? Who are you? And I think especially for parents who are kind of brand new at the adolescent, talk to us because you studied this, right? It matters to you. Yeah. And I want to touch on it for a few minutes because I think this is an age that so often gets overlooked. Parents get frustrated. We push things under the rug and we don't deal with them. Tell us what's going on with our
aliens.
We
dismiss them. It is, to me, it's one of the coolest times in their lives. They are growing. Their brain is growing. Now, size-wise, in elementary school, they're just growing. Their brain is is growing in size. It gets to 95% about its size by the time they're in middle school. You're learning concrete things in those elementary years. Black, white, up, down, red, blue, all those
gravity.
Basics. Yes. Yeah. If I drop it again, and you tell them don't touch it, and they're looking at you, how far? They're wanting to know.
Yeah. What's the boundary?
Mm-hmm. So they're learning all of those things. And then they hit middle school age, adolescence starts, and their brain starts rewiring itself. There is an amazing amount of rewiring. It starts from the back of our brain and works towards the front through those adolescent years as it's building connections.
So many things are making sense right now.
It's so good. And so they start asking bigger questions because their emotions start to develop more. They're bigger emotions. They're seeing things. They're more other aware than they used to be. Mm-hmm. And so, you think about, I was flying on a plane just recently, and there was this little baby. We were delayed. We were on the tarmac forever. And this one little child starts screaming. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to do that too. I just know it's not socially acceptable. And so I'm other aware. I'm not going to have a tantrum. Yeah. I don't blame this 3-year-old for having a tantrum.
I mean, you can only do that. I mean, to be fair, Sherri, you can only do that in COVID.
Right.
We let people throw fits in COVID.
But right now, if I threw a tantrum on the plane, they'd be pulling me off the plane. But a 3-year-old, they're not. True. And so you become other aware. You become aware of those larger, more complicated ideas. Emotions are harder to process. And so they need to be able to process them with you and have deeper conversations. They're going to start challenging you.
Yes, they are.
Because they're trying to grasp how their mind thinks.
What do you do? This is a great question. What do you do when the child challenges you? Because I know for a lot of parents, we're just like, listen, Linda, I'm your mother. And get to challenge me. You have a little bit of a different approach.
Right. And that's a hard balance because they are still under our care, and there are things that we will do in our homes that are required. Like they're non-negotiables. Yeah. You will, whatever it is, you're going to take a shower. Whatever those basics are. And so those are there. But then they're asking questions like, well, why do I have to believe this? Mm-hmm. Why do I have to say that? And that's very good because they're starting to make it their own. Mm-hmm. We want our children to launch in understanding why they believe what they believe, knowing who they are so that they can have an answer in spiritually, educationally, worldview, all of it. And so we have to have those bigger conversations.
Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid of them.
Don't be afraid of them. Engage, talk to them. And sometimes, again, it may be, this is a big question. There's a lot to talk about. Maybe this is not the right time because we're driving to wherever we're going. We got to get there.
Did you notice your kids do this to you like 11:30 at night? And you're just, your eyes are like propping open with a toothpick. Yes. Yeah. And they're like, Mom, how did you know that Dad was the one? I'm like, really?
And that's the time you got to grab though. Right. Seriously. So they become nocturnal because
this is why, Mom and Dad, this is why you're so tired. Okay. Yes. There's a reason.
Your preteens and teens need more sleep because that's when that wiring happens.
Oh, this is important too. Talk to me about the sleep thing for a second, because I think that parents, and I think homeschool parents make this mistake too. They don't recognize how the brain is wired for, especially for middle school or even high school. They actually do need more sleep.
They need 8 to 10 hours.
Yes, and when you get them up at the crack of dawn, because that's what the family is doing, and then you're like, why can't you function? And why are you functioning, later into the evening?
Yes.
There's a science behind that.
There's a science behind that. They literally, their brains they're rewiring, they're reworking, they're growing. Yeah. And so that's what happens while they're sleeping. And so it takes a while for their brain to turn on. They're more of a dimmer switch. They're not a pink. So they're going to come out with their hair out and they're like, no.
It's so true.
They can't form a word. And here we are like, okay, let's do algebra.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, and I feel for kids who are in a public school, private school.
Yeah, because their 8 a.m. class algebra.
Yeah. They have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and take an exam. And so if you have the flexibility, tailor when they do those more challenging subjects in the afternoons. They'll allow
Maybe when you're waking up in the morning, you're reading books together. Maybe that's the time that you're pulling out the classics and you're reading your missionary stories and you're studying the Bible and you're having devotions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so important they do. And then their brain is awake at 11 o'clock at night and they're asking you those hard questions.
It's so unfortunate.
It is, but grab it.
Yeah.
Brew a second cup of coffee and say, all right, and we'll sleep in an hour later tomorrow, or we'll catch up with a nap or whatever, because grab those moments. That's that quality time moment. Yeah. And know that that's a very natural thing for their brain to turn on later on.
They're not doing it to torture you. It only feels like it.
That's right. That's right. They need that opportunity to process. Yeah. And so it is a natural thing. And then their choices. You're going to have a child that one day seems extremely mature. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, you're like,
Boy, that's so true.
What did you just do? What were you thinking?
I thought we figured this out.
Right. That's because
we talked about this.
The cause and effect process of the brain is still under construction.
Yeah.
And so they're learning, if I do this, then this is going to happen, and there's going to be consequences, and they're going to mess up. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to learn. And so we have to give them some grace in that. We can't, I don't know. It's going to be frustrating. I've told you this 3,000 times. Why aren't you? Don't. Yeah. I mean, if you do.
This is so good for me, Sherri. Can I just say I'm having a little counseling session here because I have like one child left, and she's 14. And I'm like, I've been, I'm 100. I counted up. I was 187 years old, but I'm in their dog years, right? When you get to be my age and you're still homeschooling. Now I'm 193 years old and homeschooling this year.
Deserve that
this year, 193. Wow. And I'm getting tired. And there's a part of me that's just like, I have told you this 100 times. And I have. And if you multiply it by the 6 other kids, it's 4 billion times. And I think to myself,
I know.
I'm famous around here for saying, what doesn't kill you make you wish you were dead.
That's right. That's right.
And I think what you're saying to parents and what I'm hearing, and I think this is so good even for me, as I want to finish well, there's a method to this, and it's okay. Like when you say that thing 30 times to your kid, they're not trying to be a brat to you. No, they really do need to hear it again. They really do need to hear it again.
They're gaining more abstract ideas.
So give them a big hug, jump on them. I jumped on Sailor the other day. She loved that. I'll tell you what.
They may not love it, but they do.
I jumped on her literally. I jumped on her bed and was like, let's snuggle.
They're like,
this will be so fun.
Yeah, they love that. But it's so good. Even academically, they're taking concrete ideas and they're understanding abstract. And so we need to educationally even give them opportunities to learn lots of different ways.
Yes.
Expose them to lots of things. Give them leadership opportunities.
Yeah.
Because as they're learning relationships, they're able to learn to pour into somebody else. They're learning selflessness. They're learning
self-control.
How other people are. Yes.
Yeah.
So giving them exposure, athletics, music, they're processing. They need time alone sometimes to process. Some kids, they're going to be reading upside down on the couch.
It's so true.
And that's not, you're like, get up and sit normally. Their brain needs it. They're learning proprioception. They're learning all of the things that help their brains navigate.
Which is
adulthood.
another reason why homeschooling is so great. When was the last time you saw a kid in a school setting be able to hang upside down off of their chair? Yeah. I think we take for granted often that when we bring our kids home and when we decide, okay, we take the good, the bad, and the ugly with it. Yeah. And some of the things we think are bad are actually necessary and important to the kids. Yeah. And I want to, there's 2 things I want to touch on you before we run out of time today. One is I want you to talk to the parents who are really struggling academically with their middle schooler right now. And they're just like, you know what? Listen, Linda, I give up. They're not listening to me, and they're teetering on the edge of putting their kids back in school because they feel like my child's not listening to me. I mean, I don't know how many people have said this to you, Sherri, but over the years, I've had so many people say to me, oh, I could never do that. I could never do that. Talk to the parent who's really having this academic struggle with their kids right now, particularly as it's middle school-ish and moving into high school. And they're just kind of going, I can't do it.
Yeah, because it seems bigger and it counts.
Yeah.
We're all about that college, academic, whatever. And, what counts is keeping the hearts of your children, helping to pour into them, helping them to understand this whole big world with all the craziness that's going on, and access to you as being a safe place without attacking them for those hard questions or bringing up why do we even do that?
Right.
So academically speaking, you're giving them flexibility, again, adjusting their schedule, different ways to learn. Some kids are more auditory. All kids in middle school are kinesthetic. They want to touch, they want to see, they want to model, they want to come up with bizarre ideas. And you can talk about it with them. Yeah. It is more effort, but the academics will come. One of our kids was very slow to develop and wanted to be an engineer. And I was like, well, honey,
this might not be in the cards for you.
And it truly, I was like his academic security blanket. Mom, come sit next to me while I do this. And I didn't have time to do that, but we worked through it slowly. And I'm like, Lord, it just required a lot of prayer. And I would encourage the parent who is with your child and you're just not loving this child right now, understand they're under construction. God is doing an amazing thing. Pray for them. Pray with them.
Where that prayer
help
piece.
them to understand who God made them to be and that they are unique. They are beautiful. They may struggle with math. God made their brain that way. And it might blossom. My wanted to be engineer son is now a flight surgeon in the Air Force. He's going to his 2nd year of medical residency. He's going to get his pilot's license with the Air Force. I mean, he's he just stuns me. And like, if you'd asked me if that kid could have done that back when he was in 8th grade, 9th grade, I'd be like, I don't see it.
Yeah.
But God's got a plan for them. Their development rate is God's development rate for them. And there is no race. Do not look at what other kids are doing, because there's no comparison to that unique child you have. Beautifully designed, whether it's learning disabilities, whether it's way too much understanding and you've got to work hard to get them the education from other people because you don't feel like you're equipped. There's so much available for homeschoolers now.
There's so much available. And when we take advantage of it, people say to me, I'm worried that there's going to be gaps in my kids' education. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
There will be.
There will absolutely be. I graduated from one of the most prestigious Christian high schools with a very high GPA. I was a great student. I loved school. And guess what? I went away to college and there were gaps in my education.
We cannot learn everything about everything in 13 years.
You have to believe, and I think this is really important, that what God starts in you, through you and your hard work and your love for that child, God will finish it.
Absolutely.
It's God's job to finish. And I also love that you pointed out, and this is so important. I want parents to really get this and hang on tight to this. We have made education an idol in this country. And it isn't as much about the academics as it is about the heart. If you get the heart wrong and you get the academics right, you got the whole thing wrong.
You have an educated fool.
You have an educated fool. Right. You do. And
that's dangerous.
Go to California, Berkeley, and you will see what I'm talking about.
That's dangerous. Yes.
It's dangerous. And we're talking about their eternal soul and their eternal being. And it always matters more. Absolutely. That we focus on character. We teach them to love the Lord and to walk with him. Your kids are going to get to choose. That's right. So even if we do the very best that we can, and we know we've brought our children up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, they get to choose. And I've talked to lots and lots of parents whose kids have chosen to walk away from the Lord. So it's not a guarantee. It's not a promise. It's a proverb when the Bible says, train your children up in the way that they should go. And but what I don't want as a mother is to look back over the years that I had of parenting and say, I wish I would have told my kids what I knew was true. I wish I would have worked harder at the character development part, because you don't get a do-over.
Right. But even if you've got a high schooler and you have some wishes, God's not done, and God can redeem that.
Yes.
Build those relationships. Yep. Keep the conversation going with your kids so that as they're navigating adulthood, even, you never stop being a mom and dad.
Boy.
So they're going to come to you and talk to you, and to be able to have the freedom to come to you and say, Mom, I don't agree with you on that. Okay, let's talk. Let's talk about that. Why? I want to know. Because I love you and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And, and that's so good. It's so good to have that conversation, that relationship. It all boils down to relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship between us and them and the Lord, us and the Lord. God's doing a work in us through this homeschooling thing.
Yep.
And boy, he matured me through that process.
Boy, and he's still doing
grateful.
it. Yeah. Motherhood is sanctifying.
Yes, it is.
Parenthood is sanctifying. Marriage is sanctifying. It is
so
all.
Selfish. Yes.
Right. I mean, the older I get, the more I'm like, well, shoot fire. I'm a selfish human being. I thought I grew out of that, but apparently I didn't. And I wonder too, I've been saying this a lot lately because of where I am in my life. And I think you will agree. Anyone can start strong. Like, we can start strong with our plan that we have, with our schedule, with our ideals, with all the things. It's very hard to finish strong.
Yes.
And I think it's hard to finish strong with raising children. Yes. I think it's challenging to finish strong in homeschooling because we get tired. I think it's hard to finish strong in marriage. I mean, we can get to the end of it and everybody's cranky and now your bodies don't work like they used to and you're tired. And my prayer really has been, in recent years, Lord, help me to finish strong. I want to finish strong. Yeah. And the Lord can help.
He can, because our expectations are often not what God wants for us. I have these expectations of what my family was going to look like. I have the expectations of what my husband and my relationship was going to be.
Yep.
And oftentimes I'm not on track with what God has. It's for his good. All of it is for his good. And so if we're in a situation where it wasn't supposed to be like this, God, I did X, Y, and Z, and we still have this. What are you teaching me through this? That's what it is. What do you want from me? I cannot change that person or this sickness or this loss of job. What do you want from me? What do you want me to learn in your word, in my heart? It's really what God's doing in us.
It really is. And the homeschool journey, very much that way. I'm always telling parents, and I think this is true, regardless of the age of the child that you're teaching or how long you've been doing it. I think the homeschool journey is very much and maybe even more about the parents than it is about the child, because we're learning. I mean, I'm like, if homeschooling hadn't driven you to your knees, you are doing it wrong. Okay. Parenting drives you to your knees, and it continues to. I mean, I do think as my kids have gotten older now, they're having kids of their own. I pray more than I've ever prayed.
Yeah.
I pour my heart out to the Lord more. You realize what little control, the control you thought you had was just an illusion. It's not an opportunity for control. It's an opportunity to teach character. It's an opportunity to make an indelible mark in the lives of your children, which hopefully will set them on a path toward pursuing the Lord for the rest of their lives.
Right. And understand that you are not alone. We all experience it's messy. And what you see in social media, what you see in blogs, what you see in podcasts, when people are showing you their beautiful homeschool room or their kids and all the pictures of
and all the kids are in matching outfits.
Yeah. It is not reality.
And it's not helpful.
No.
It really isn't.
I mean,
I wish
I'm showing you my house, I want to show you the pile of laundry I got over here.
Yeah.
Because it's always there, or the dishes in the sink.
Yeah.
Rather than keeping the camera on the pretty side of the house. Mm-hmm. Just understanding that we all have to go through this messy part, but it's so encouraging to see God's faithfulness through it and what He's doing for us and for our children. He's there for us.
He is. You had said something earlier, and I want to touch on it in the few minutes that we have left here. We were talking about the importance of teaching our children to say that they're sorry, to apologize. And you'd mentioned so important for parents also to say, I'm sorry. I mean, I've often said to my kids, hey, listen, I'm new here. I've never actually parented anyone before. You're my great experiment. I hope it works out for you. But I do think that there's a mistake that we can make. And I've seen this happen before. And I think I've done it too. When we apologize and we mean it, right? We apologize. And then we do the same thing. We apologize again and we apologize again. And I would love to tell parents at some point, you got to get this right. At some point, because when you've apologized to your child 15 times in a row because you lost your temper, you said the thing that you shouldn't have said, eventually the apology is meaningless. It's just a hollow apology. And so I guess what I want to say is that apology really isn't enough, especially when we're talking about parents. And I think parents would want, I think it's true in their children too. Mm-hmm. When you see them apologize, but there's no actual heart change. We're looking for, and God is looking for the heart change to accompany the apology.
Yes. And so we can develop patterns to help us, say it is raising my voice or losing my temper. If I start feeling like that, I want that gut response then to be, okay, we're going to go to our respective corners here. You sit in your room. I'm going to go to my room. Let's pray for 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Let's reset, because I need that reset to be able to understand where I am and not have to apologize again for losing my temper. I recognize that's an issue, or whatever it is. It could be my expectation of you finishing this math in 5 minutes, or my understanding that you're going to get all your chores done. Whatever it is that we have that's frustrating us, and if we identify that we're continually apologizing, then it's a blind spot.
Yeah.
We can ask, that's where the community comes in too.
Yeah.
Ask another mom to pray for you. Be transparent. That's, if you don't have relationships with others that are close and deep, then you cannot be in a safe, transparent relationship with them to be able to share, I'm hurting here and I need your help. I need you to please pray for me. There's accountability there. That, and you can even tell your children, I have a friend who's been praying with me about this, and I really want to understand what's going on that makes me do X, Y, or Z. Yeah. Because I love you.
And they can point it out. I mean, this is the iron sharpening iron piece of it. A long time ago, one of our kids, Jay and I have started homeschool cooperatives all over the country. I think that's how I met you the first time we were doing that. And one of our friends, we developed deep relationships at these homeschool co-ops. And of course, the one that we had here was kind of our home ministry, home base. And of course, my kids are viewed like the pastor's kids, right? Because I started the co-op with my husband. And I remember one of my friends is really sheepishly, she's walking down the hallway toward me. And the way she's walking, I was like, oh boy,
who did what?
She gonna say something to me that I do not want to hear. And she was like, your child floated the F word in class today. And I was like, what? What? This is not a word that we use at my house. So first I'm trying to figure out where did the word come from? But then I had to get over my embarrassment. And then I had to go find my child and say, hey, Mrs. Ewert said that you did this today. And the look that I got, I'm like, can I just where did you have you ever heard your father say that to me? No. Have you ever heard me say it? No. Where'd you hear it? I think it was a movie or something. But he was just testing the boundary. Like, sure. I'm going to test the boundary. But I went to my friend later and she told me, she's like, man, Heidi, I was sweating. I'm like, I had to go to Heidi. And I got to say, Heidi's the girl who started the homeschool co-op. You're the girl that we all go to for, homeschool counsel. And I had to go to you and say, hey, your kid's dropping the F-bomb in my class and I had to kick him out of class. And I told her, I said, I thank you for that. Because had you not had the courage to come to me and say your kid did this, and boy, parents need to be willing to hear it.
Right. We have got to understand.
You have to be willing to hear it. When your kid is messing up, it's so much better for you to hear it so that you can correct it than for you to come rush to the defense of your child and say, well, my child would never do that.
Yeah. And in a loving way, if we see another child doing that, going to the parents in a loving way, rather than your kid's doing this and your kid said that.
Well, I could tell. I mean, Lori was just like, I hate to be the bearer of the bad news.
We've got to be, again, there's that relationship building. We've got to be open and transparent and build relationships with others. That's that greater homeschooling community. Yeah. That's that greater educational community, our church community. At church, we feel like we have to put on perfection.
Boy, that was really true. And I think in the early 90s. Do you remember when Growing Kids God's Way came out?
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole, I could do an entire show on Growing Kids God's Way. Because we did that. We were all we were doing after about, 6 weeks in that class is everyone's just yardsticking everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think it became detrimental because rather than focus on, the heart of what we were trying to study, we were worried about what everybody else was thinking about our parenting.
Right.
And girlfriend, that is not a fun place to be.
No. And I think the whole word parenting is just kind of I don't know. It doesn't have to be a thing. It is being a family.
Yeah, that's good.
And living as a family. We parent, but parent never was a verb.
Right.
Now it is.
And like Google.
Right.
We're Googling.
Verb. Everything's a verb. But it is part of the way that God made us, the way he designed family. He Adam and Eve were parents, and that was God's beauty, and learning how to navigate that in a fallen world.
Yeah, come on.
It is just part of it, and it's gonna be messy, and it's gonna be ugly, and we should be surprised if our kids are like robots and not doing it, because that's not natural.
That's not.
If you have a child that never sins, and
something's wrong.
You're not seeing it.
We know he's not Jesus.
Yeah, right.
So you're missing something.
Yeah. So there will be arguments. There will be things. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be exhausting, but it is for our good.
And it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
It's going to be worth it. Sherri Seligson, you're a national treasure. Thank you for coming all the way out here to the Pacific Northwest. You've got a new book coming out with Tricia Goyer. Just came out, actually, and she's going to come on, and we're going to talk about that. But if people are interested in finding you online and following what God's doing in your life and the many adventures of the traveling scientist that you have now become, where would they do that?
You can find me at sherriseligson.com, or I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Happy to connect with everybody.
Yeah. I love that. Sherri Seligson, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a delight to have you.
Heidi.
Welcome back. Well, I am really excited today because I have the dynamic duo in the studio with me, Sherri and Tricia. You guys have just authored a brand new book. And we talked a little about how many books Tricia has written, and I told her, she makes me feel like, I used to be like, listen to me, guys, I've written like 10 books, and I'm like, when I'm around her, I'm like, I threw a couple paragraphs together for somebody one time, Because you've written like 4 billion books. You're like a book a minute. Like, that's just, it's I know you do. It's so awesome. And I love it when you take your superpower, which is book writing, and you author it up with Sherri Seligson, who's got this superpower of making science really fun and interesting. I love watching your fun little videos. Just so friendly too. She's like, I told my husband, I'm like, look at her. She's like the friendly scientist. That's the friendly scientist, because you're just so sweet and friendly and fun. And I love this because you are bringing in this book, you're really bringing the wonders of creation to little ones. And it's just so well done. And in fact, today at the Homeschool Resource Center, you guys are doing a craft with the kids. Really excited. I mean, we're going to make you famous here at the Homeschool. We're going to make you guys famous. Tell me why you guys decided to write this book together. So I don't know who wants to go first.
I'm going to pick on I was speaking at a homeschool little retreat we were doing, and I heard her speak. Because usually, as speakers,
we're like ships in the night.
We don't ever get to hear someone. So that's when I get here. I'm like, I love her, and I'm going to write a book with her. I think that at the event,
Listen, you've heard us speak before, and he's never loved me enough to write a book with me. That's all right. I'll be in counseling after this. It's time.
No, it's time. We'll do a trio.
Oh, wait.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you heard her speak, and you were just like, she would just be great co-authoring a book.
Yeah, because I'm a mom that loves reading out loud to kids.
I do too. Yeah.
But sometimes the science stuff gets a little bit dry. And actually, she came up with the idea, like, what if we did a science storybook where you're following a creature through, like, a life cycle or something? And so we picked 5 different creatures.
Exactly. That's what Schling Sea Hauling was like. Les, Hauling Sea Hauling. I have read Seabird with my kids and Pagoo and Paddle to the Sea. And it just like sticks in your mind. Yes. Yeah. Because children learn with stories. And that's where, Tricia is a master of storytelling. And I love making the children love science. Children love the world around us. And so I love I feel like the Vanna White of science sometimes. God made it, but look. God made it, but look. The friendly science. Because it's beautiful on its own. And so to be able to share that excitement and wonder and do it in a way that engages children and families together, we just felt like it was a good combo for us.
It's just so important because science is everywhere, right? Trust the science. Never mind. We won't even go there. Why is it so important that we address this stuff from a creationist point of view? Why did that matter?
I think that it's not a salvation issue, but it is a firm foundation of our faith issue, particularly for our kids. They are exposed to everything. And, even in a Christian household, you cannot get away from secular scientists stating this is for a fact.
Right.
And a lot of it is not based on sound science.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a question of faith, it falls back to origins. You always get to origins. And so to be able to have that.
And that you agree with Darwin. It is a question of origins.
It is a question of origins. It's just that his origins are not what I think. It's really an important subject. And as a greater church, we're afraid of science because we think it can't stand up. That's right. And so, you've got these guys with British accents and goatees who say, we know for a fact evolution is true. So anyway, it is wonderful to be able to expose science and God's creation together and equip students and their families with tools to say, yes, God made it, and we love studying it. And the more you see about it, the more it points to God's.
Yes, it does. One of our most downloaded episodes was one I did with you a long time ago, and that was the topic. We were talking about science and the Bible and Christianity, and her whole point was it actually backs up the Bible, right? Science backs up God's word, and we don't need to be afraid to study it. We shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. Creation was made to point us back to God and to his word. Last night, you guys were at my house for dinner, and Dave standing out, I don't know if you were there when he said this to me, but standing out on our back porch, and we had this spectacular view of the Columbia River Valley from our home. And I was saying, no, you were there. I was saying, it's just, we come outside, and, we can look at skyscrapers all day long, but the creation that God has made, it's the things that God has made that take our breath away. It's the mountains, it's the sun, it's the ocean. It's all of these things that we look at, and your husband said, it's because God made us to appreciate beauty.
That's right. Yeah, and when people say what separates us from the animals, you can walk by a sunset, and all of us will stop and just enjoy it. We'll just wonder at it and marvel at it. And the squirrels aren't. And the dolphins aren't. The dogs aren't. No animals are stopping and going, oh, yeah. They don't. They're not made in God's image.
No,
we are.
And it's particularly true of my dog. I just like to say.
Yeah. So it is. We were wired to understand beauty, to appreciate it, to marvel at creation, and so it is a privilege to be able to share these stories and help kids marvel.
And we're kind of bound up right now. In technology, right? Everybody's got their heads in their stupid smart, including me. Like, I would like to say that I'm not part of that generation, but unfortunately, I am. I have to force myself to put that stupid thing down. And I think our kids have lost a sense of wonder and lost that ability to just really, it used to be, you send your kids out into it's amazing to me, right? I've got a 33-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter, and I'm raising my 14-year-old daughter in a vastly different world than I raised my 34-year-old daughter in. And so I wonder, you guys, because obviously, we're homeschool moms, so let's just be honest. We love books. We do. We love to hold them. We love to smell them. We love to buy them at homeschool bookstores. We love all of the stuff. But it's more than that, right? It's important that we are encouraging our kids to get away from technology and really get them out to appreciate the wonder of the world around them. And that's really kind of what you guys are highlighting in the book. So Tricia, take me through the story a little bit, because it's titled The Wonder. I love that word.
Wonders of the Ocean Realm. So we have 5 different creatures. We have a sea star. We have a peacock mantis shrimp.
It's a sea star, not a starfish.
Correct.
I learned that from Sherri.
Not a fish.
Yeah, she's like, it's a sea star. But it's okay. It is fine.
We have a mimic octopus. We have a whale. And then, yes, the copies other creatures.
You've seen? Okay. I just have to say, so I love this book. It's so, and of course, it's Tyndale. I love Tyndale. Everything they do is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I watched a video of an octopus just last night on Instagram. Don't tell anyone. I shouldn't be on Instagram with 11, but I was. Okay, so I'm watching this. He has his own Instagram page. This octopus that I follow. Okay, I'm to the point in my life now where I'm following an octopus on Instagram. But anyway, his owner puts food in a jar, screws the lid on a mason jar, screws the lid on it, and then just puts the jar in the tank. And the octopus comes over
So smart.
on top of the jar, and after it only took him like 45 seconds, and he figures out how to unscrew the lid on this mason jar to get his food out. And while he's doing it, his mantle is changing color. And the guy is like talking in the background. He's like, look how happy he is. And all the colors were happy. And I'm like, only God could do that. I'm going to give this octopus happy colors.
Yes.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. Only God can do this.
God can do it.
So when John and I first got married, we ended up going to a creation seminar. It completely changed our life, our faith. Because I'd grown up going to church. I gave my life to the Lord when I was pregnant, and then God brought me John. But we just had a little baby. Our first, Corey was just a little toddler. Went to that conference, and we knew about, like, God did this. Only God can do this. And our parenting years were completely changed because we believed in that. We truly believed in that. And so then look what God did. Look at this animal. And you're phrasing everything in that way. And that's the point of the book.
Yeah, and those creatures are a testimony to creation, because the octopus, for example, biologically is very little difference than a clam. And yet an octopus can solve puzzles and can mimic other animals and their behavior, like the one that we talk about. And so
Clam you can have
it confounds those who hold to evolutionary theory. It says it makes sense. In fact, I read a scientific article recently that said octopuses must come from outer space because there's no way they could have evolved here. Based on
And that is the point. That's where you like, thank you, Darwinian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is. The more we learn, the more they're struggling to make it fit their model, because it's really fitting a biblical model.
I think this is so awesome. You've named these. You've named your creatures. I don't know who came up with the names, but this is Astrid. So great. Maximus, the peacock mantis shrimp.
That has the fastest punch, the fastest creature.
Like this.
Faster than the speed of sound. It creates a flash of light with its punch. It is a powerful. I can see that it's like a super.
Maximus, like, in Gladiator. I love that. Dexter, he's the octopus. I love that. Wendell, the humpback whale. We love our whales out here in the Northwest. I mean, you and I have gone whale watching.
That's right.
Yes. Luna, the deep sea anglerfish. Those are scary.
They're so ugly.
Yeah.
And they have a little light thing.
Yeah. Why'd you pick an anglerfish?
Well, they're fascinating. What they do. And
Also the layers of you see the layers?
Yes.
Position?
Well, they're really outfits.
Okay.
Yes.
So smart. Okay. Oh. See? I'm not a scientist. I just play one on my podcast. This is great, though. So you start with Astrid, who's up here, right? At the top. And now you're going farther and farther
In the depth.
into the depths of the ocean. From all anglerfish, it only makes sense that you go down into the depths of the ocean and find this horrific-looking creature.
With a fake ugly mouth. But that bacteria that I learned from Sherri only survives in that anglerfish.
Yeah.
They can't
survive without these.
survive without each other.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Now, she named her Luna because she has to be filled with light and beauty in her own unique, scary way.
Yeah.
She's
I love scary.
Call it light and beauty, but The scientist will see what she wants to see. She's terrifying.
She just said
Those anglerfish. I mean, honestly,
Like,
when our kids were studying them,
Yeah.
we watched hours of YouTube videos on anglerfish. That's the stuff.
And God put that down there and has this whole creature down there for us to discover and go, wow.
And of course, kids are fascinated by it because they are fascinating.
I love this. Your takeaway for your mimic octopus, you say, like the clever mimic octopus, we have the ability to watch, learn, and change. Terry, what is your favorite personal testimony that's tied to creation?
You mean my background of that?
Yeah, just your, like, when you think of creation and your, the way that you view it, what's the favorite thing about it when you study creation?
I just, the complexity and the order, that fascinates me. We all have to learn the periodic table of the elements in school, don't we?
I did.
Yes. And so we have to, whether we not. And so
I did.
But there's the purpose, the design, the way that they came up with this table. They would discover an element that had 8 protons and an element that had 10 protons. And said, there must be an element that has 9 protons. And so the organization and order that could not be random. And now I'm going to tell school kids across the nation will cry out in frustration and sadness, but there's another periodic table that's coming out. That is the periodic table of subatomic particles that we all have to learn, because even smaller than atoms,
You feel smarter
they're
now.
organized and ordered, and that's God's design.
Yeah.
The organization and order, the underlying principles in our universe, fundamental principles, that just astounds me. That points to creator.
And really, this is what the Bible says. The creation points to the creator.
It does.
And that's why we're without excuse.
We are.
Right? Because the creation speaks his name. Tricia, as an author, I mean, you've written all kinds of books. Is this your first foray into science?
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming. And so how did your experience as an author, writing, you've done children's books, parenting books, you do romance novels.
I do.
You do all kinds of crazy things. And I'm wondering how that impacted how you saw, how it gave you kind of a vision for this.
Well, I just love creation, and we would do it in homeschool. Then I hear Sherri talk about it, and then we're working on these creatures and say, what about this? And she just like, oh, and she gets so excited. And then I write it down. And then I would say, what about this? And she gets so excited. And then I would write something. She goes, actually, they don't really swim this way. It would be more like this. I'm like, okay. So it's like this research in my pocket. This little research in my pocket.
Here's like little pocket research guide. And then she's like the story wizard who says, well, then they could do this next, and this can happen next. And
We need a story arc. We need to follow the story arc of our lives.
Yeah. When you talk to parents about science, and I know you obviously, work for Apologia for a long time. We know those guys. I love Apologia, mostly because, well, A, it's done so excellently, but it just so obviously points people back to God and to the Creator. What are some ways that we can encourage parents as they teach their kids to really appreciate the wonder of the world around them?
be outside with them.
Come on.
Go on a walk with them. Don't make it an assignment, but just naturally marvel. We don't have to know all the technical terms and the details, but when you see moss growing on a fire hydrant, think about the tenacity of that moss growing on something that's dead.
Have you seen moss on a fire hydrant?
It's out here in the Pacific Northwest. It's amazing. It goes on everything. Once you see that, I will take pictures and send them to you. It is amazing out here. We're in Florida. It doesn't do it there.
Going on vacation with her, it's fun.
Yeah.
We went canoeing at night and saw the bioluminescent, the gouge, and the manatees.
And the manatees in the water, and I'm sorry. VeggieTales has ruined me. You talk about manatees, and I just do, Barbara, manatee. That's all I can hear
In my head. It is amazing, though.
But marvel with them. Because there's so much enjoyment out there. We like you said, technology is just there. We're always on our phones. We're seeing things virtually, but just even in your backyard, listening to the birds, talking about them. Enjoy it like you would if you were taking a walk with a 3-year-old.
I used to tell moms a long time I used to teach, just sort of basic homeschooling and nuts and bolts and things like that. And I would say, listen, I think homeschooling moms, especially when our kids are younger, we overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Like you want to know what you want to do science with your kid, just send them out in the backyard and say, push over the heaviest thing that you can push over. And whatever comes out from underneath it, we're going to Google it.
Bye.
Right. So amazing the things that happen when you just get out into creation, or even just the things that are in your home. We used to have an African gray parrot. You guys remember Rosie? this little beautiful African gray parrot, and she could talk just like I can. And she actually had my voice down, like to the point we got her, shortly after she was hatched. And she really, for lack of a better word, she grew up around our kids and around me. So the phone would ring in our house and she would answer it. Like she would go, hello, and no one would answer the phone because she talked just like me and you sounded just like me. Well, one day we're sitting there doing school as we did. And Rosie, just out of the clear blue sky, said, Spencer, get in the car. And so Spencer got up and he went and got in the car. And while he's doing that, the other kids are howling. I mean, they are dying laughing. And it was appropriate because we were reading, I think, Flying Creatures of the Fifth Day. So we were going through all this stuff. And all of a sudden, here's my African gray parrot. Spencer, get in the car. And of course, school is done at that point because I can't recover. Everyone's laughing. We left Spencer in the car for 20 minutes because we were just like, serves you right, man. You can't tell the difference between mom's voice and the bird. But I took the opportunity to say to my kids, can you imagine what God was thinking when he made the African gray parrot? I mean, he must have been like, okay, I made the turtle dozen. Those are cute. They really can't do anything. And I made the robin. He's going to be the early bird against the worm. And they're going to write about, the blue and gold macaw. What else could I do? Oh, this will throw them.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bird that talks like they do. Only God can do that. And I think that's part of how you instill wonder in your kids is just take advantage of the area in which you live and expose them to make sure.
And you talk about watching the videos. There's so many things at our fingertips. We can just marvel over. And we have little side notes called Ocean Notions. And like the echolocation of whales and how they're able to migrate and they know where they are. They are in communities and little pods. It's like, it's so amazing. And that is the perfect homeschool day. Cuddle up, go look at some whales, read the story, enjoy God's creation.
Who is what is the name of the snapping turtle in Hauling Sea Hauling? Was that, I don't know that. Remember that one? Oh, yeah, it's a snapping turtle. Anyway, I did that one. And then, the story of Pagoo. And I think of all of the little creatures that Hauling Sea Hauling wrote about, but he gave them personalities. And you understand the lock and dam system and all those kinds of things. And I think when kids read books like this with their parents will be surprised at the little things that sort of come to mind. You're like, oh, we could do this today, right? Yes. It's a good idea to sort of take a day off from what you're normally doing and just follow the rabbit trail wherever it leads and see the kinds of questions that your kids ask. And then I love that you created this and turn it into a story. Because that's how Jesus taught also, right? So he taught with parables. If you can teach something using a story, kids will remember it.
Absolutely.
Kids will remember it.
So we wanted to make that as engaging and natural as possible. And then there's also connections, like a connection to just faith and science together. What does this mean for you? What does it mean to communicate with God? We know how whales communicate. What about your communication? And so we help to tie it into conversation starters for parents and their kids.
Do you feel like an anglerfish today? That's right.
That little mantis shrimp gets kind of grumpy in there. And we had to talk about that. What does that mean when he wants to punch everything? How do we help our emotions?
That is
Don't auto puncher.
That's awesome. Well, this is great. You guys, this book is called Wonders of the Ocean Realm. I'm really... Marvels of the Wild. You guys gonna do more?
That is our
plan. We're going to do more from the sun-soaked tide pools of Hawaii to the wide expanse of the Atlantic waters. Discover the wonders awaiting you in the ocean realm. I love this, you guys. I hope it does really, really well. If people are interested in the book, where can they find it?
So you can go to Tyndale.com, Tricia Goyer,
or wherever
it's just go to the communist company of Amazon, and I'm sure that you'll find it there. Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble. Again, communists. But my books are there, so I'm here where you buy them. Buy them wherever you want. I love this. I think it's great. I love it when communists benefit from a capitalist society. That's my favorite thing. So let's do that. You guys are just wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been a delight to have you.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show. I hope you've been encouraged and inspired like I have been. If you would like, there is a free downloadable activity book that you can find that goes along with Wonders of the Ocean Realm. I'm going to link back to that in the show notes today. That's being put out by Tyndale, so check it out. Thank you to Not Consumed, who is sponsoring this show today. Check them out, notconsumed.com/Heidi. You can get a free 5-day family Bible study there. And if you use the coupon code Heidi when you check out, you'll get 15% off your entire purchase. You guys have to spell my name right. HEIDI. It doesn't work any other way. So when you go to check out HEIDI, you'll get 15% off your entire purchase. Also, want to remind you that we've got a parenting conference coming up here at Firmly Planted Family on February 22nd. And we're going to be talking about parenting from little ones all the way up through the teen years. We're going to encourage you in your marriages. Wonderful opportunities abound at Firmly Planted Family. This is just one of the conferences that we're doing this year. And again, this is our parenting conference on February the 22nd. So I hope you guys will check it out. If you're interested in finding out where I will be, I am traveling all over the country like a clown with my hair on fire. And that starts out really soon for me. And you can find out where I'll be by going to HeidiSt.John.com/events. Also want to invite you to go through the Bible with me over at Faith That Speaks. We are taking literally hundreds and hundreds of women through God's Word this year at Faith That Speaks. You guys, being in the Word of God will change your life. The Bible says that it's a lamp to your feet and a light to your path. And if you feel the shadows of the culture lengthening, shine the light of God's Word into it, and you will discover that God has an incredible plan for your life. It will change your life. So join us. You can jump in anytime you want to at faiththatspeaks.com. We have loved being with you today. I hope this has been encouraging for you. I know it has been for me. We'd love it if you'd share this episode with your friends. Make sure and put the podcast on automatic download and let us know what you think. You can reach out to me directly by going to HeidiSt.John.com/podcast. We love you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you right back here again at the intersection of faith